I really worry about the kids because eventually they're going to run into an umpire who does know the difference and is going to call those pitchers illegal. And will that kid be able to adjust? Will that kid be able to make an in-game adjustment to pitch, quote unquote, legally, as opposed to the crow hopping that they're doing?
Whether you live northeast, west, or south, the best fast pitch info comes from the coach's mouth. Welcome to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast with your hosts, Jay Bolden and Ken Kraus.
All right. Hello. Welcome back to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast. Jay, I have to say you're looking good over there, buddy. He's rocking the new headphones.
Yes, it's actually, it's great to hear myself. And I didn't know I sounded this good, Ken. So I have to really thank you so much because now I can really hear what I sound like. So I think I'm going to start recording, maybe put out an album or something. I'm not sure, but I really appreciate the new headphones. They're amazing. So, how you been, buddy?
Yeah, I knew you would. I've been good. I mean, I knew you would like those. It's really helpful when you can just hear yourself coming through. And imagine now you're going to want to take over the announcements, the opens, the closes, and all that. Now that you know you sound that good.
No, actually, but I will tell you, I do like wearing these at home too, especially when my kids are loud. So they're paying off really well. Two forms of use for these things. This is great.
That's good. Yeah. Otherwise, this is mid-January here in the Chicago, Northwest Indiana area, and we're just trying to stay warm. Are you doing lessons this weekend?
Yeah, I'll get out there a little bit. I'll tell you what, Ken, I think, when we get going here, like we're going to be, I think, days away from the kickoff of softball. And, we're going to see it on TV a lot. I can't wait. I got a lot of kids this year that they're in their senior season in college. It's exciting. So, yeah, I'll do some lessons this weekend, but I just can't wait to start watching stuff and for our team at St. Xavier to start playing. I'm just ready to go. I love the practices, but man, I really want to the competition is what it's all about. So yeah, excited. How about you?
Yeah. I'll be doing lessons this weekend. It's going to be cold, but luckily the facilities I'm in will be, they're usually pretty warm. Worst case, I'll have to wear a hoodie instead of just a t-shirt, but yeah, looking forward to it. And getting back in there with high school tryouts coming up. I got a lot of kids that are really starting to get focused and getting themselves ready.
Yeah, as we get ready for the season, Ken, did you happen to see the pitch calling Zoom I did with Rick Pauly?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was great. You guys awesome. Shared a lot of knowledge there.
It was awesome. Anytime someone like that, like a legend, like Rick Pauly in the pitching community asks you to do something, you jump in with both feet. But, enough of me rambling, you rambling. We have another legend, in my opinion, in the pitching community, fast pitch pitching community that's here today. Do you want to let people know about who our awesome guest is today?
Yes, I certainly do. All right, today's guest has accomplished more in one softball lifetime than most people would accomplish in 3. As a player, he was a star pitcher in international men's softball, playing all over the world, including 8 seasons competing in New Zealand. He was not only a 2-time member of the USA men's national team, but was the youngest pitcher ever to play for that team when he joined it in 1993. Among his accomplishments are being named the Pan American Games MVP, winning the men's major national championship 3 times, earning a gold medal at the U.S. Olympic Festival, and being inducted into the USA Softball Pennsylvania Hall of Fame in 2022. His coaching career is equally stellar. After stints as a pitching coach consultant for Division I Drexel University and the University of Georgia, in 2013 he joined the staff at Providence College in Rhode Island. A strong advocate of men's fast pitch, he also served the sport as a commissioner for the International Softball Congress from 1997 to 2013. He is probably best known, though, as a private coach. He broke onto the scene as a controversial figure, speaking out against what was commonly being taught in the women's game while railing against the so-called pitching coach mafia, local coaches who were more interested in defending their turf than seeing reality. He offered private lessons and held pitching clinics all over the U.S., developing many top-level students. Perhaps his best-known student right now is Tegan Cavan, who led the Texas Longhorns to the 2025 Women's College World Series Championship while playing for our guest's close friend and former teammate, Mike White. In addition to his personal instruction, he also created a series of popular videos to help coaches and parents learn the fundamentals of pitching as well as more advanced techniques. In July of 2025, he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and given a diagnosis of a short time to live. But he's still with us and fighting like he always has. Of course, we could only be talking about one man. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm From the Coach's Mouth podcast welcome to the creator and driving force of the House of Pitching, the incredible Bill Hillhouse.
Hello, guys.
Hello, Bill.
That's quite an introduction you gave me there. We went from some really good stuff all the way down, right down to the cancer. The intro fell off at the end, Ken.
Well, we figure, we want to talk to you about a whole bunch of different things. So, we include it all. In fact, I want to ask, how you feeling these days?
I never understood what people go through when they say I have good days and I have bad days with stuff like this. And this has been a real eye opener for that. It truly is. There's good days and there's bad days, and there's no rhyme or reason to why I feel bad or why I feel good on any particular day. I haven't noticed any kind of a pattern with foods or anything like that. So far this morning, I feel okay. So, last night was a bit rough, but this morning I feel better. So it just kind of comes and goes.
Well, I'm good. I'm glad you're feeling better, especially because we're going to be taking up an hour of your time this morning. So,
well, that's good.
Do you think your experience as a high-level athlete has helped you to kind of deal with what's going on right now?
I don't.
Kind of the one pitch at a time approach?
I don't really think so, because I don't think anything prepares you for being told you have a terminal illness. And, you basically have 9 months to live, and that's an opponent that pancreatic cancer is an opponent that nobody's beaten. There's no cure. It's inoperable. I've gone against a lot of stacked lineups in my pitching career, pitching against them, but this is the toughest one. So, I'm pretty realistic about it. I understand what my chances are, and what kind of time I have left, and I'm just trying to make the most of that as much as I can.
So, Bill, I was going to ask you, knowing that prognosis, are you trying to fill some bucket list things, or are you just like staying kind of in the norm? Like what's kind of like the thing that's going on? I know a lot of people say they want to get out there and do the things they haven't done, or are you just more of like, hey, I'm going to stay the norm and work through this?
Well, quite honestly, Jay, there really hasn't been any bucket list things. I kind of treat life kind of like Christmas. I'm a hard guy to shop for Christmas, because when I want something, I go get it. And if there's ever been something I wanted to do or a place I wanted to go, I went. So I don't really have a lot of bucket list items, except trying to spend as much time with my son as I possibly can, which isn't easy considering he lives in Europe. And right. That's a whole other subject. But I'm doing what I can. I mean, I'm certainly not sitting at home, poor me, glum, doing nothing. I actually started to try to do some lessons again on weekends, just to kind of get out of the house and kind of exercise that part of my brain again. That was not easy to do. I took a good probably 5 months off where I wasn't doing any lessons, and boy, the atrophy of my brain and pitching lessons was pretty severe. And getting back into it just on a very, I can't do 10, 12-hour days like I used to. But, just doing 5 lessons a day, maybe 6 or for 3 hours, 6 lessons, 30 minutes each. It really has done wonders to help me kind of just stay active and give me something to look forward to each week.
Yeah. I mean, I know what you mean about that with the atrophy and all that. I take a week off and I come back and I have to kind of reorient myself and try to get back into the rhythm of it.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly it seems to disappear.
Yep. But fortunately, usually bounces back. For people that don't know your full story, how'd you get started in softball? I mean, we know kind of your accomplishments and the high level stuff, but where did it all begin for a Bill Hillhouse?
Erie, Pennsylvania. It's where I was born and raised. My father played fast pitch softball. He was not a pitcher. He played first base and right field. He batted ninth only because there wasn't a 10th spot. Was not a very good player. My brother and I were the bat boys for his team. And, that was back in the day when men's fast pitch softball was everywhere. In fact, in Erie, Pennsylvania, there was so much men's fast pitch softball that they actually had a morning league for guys who worked second and third shift and couldn't play in the rec league at night on Tuesday, Thursday. So guys that worked overnights, they'd get off work and they'd go play their softball game at 10 a.m. And there was leagues that did that. And nowadays, it's the exact opposite. Everything you see today in the women's game was opposite of what the men's game had. I mean, the men's game it was everywhere, and the women's game was basically non-existent. And the roles really reversed themselves here. And now the women's game is all over, and the men's game is hard to be found. So that's kind of where I got started, was in Erie, PA, and I just imitated the pitchers on my dad's team, and I never quit.
I mean, is that how you learned to pitch overall, or did you have somebody that was working with you or teaching you?
I imitated the pitchers, and I asked a ton of questions. I was one of these annoying park rats that was just constantly asking questions of the guys, and I started to notice a lot of similarities. These guys, they do a lot of the same things similarly, but with Doug Gillis. I'm sure we'll talk about him in a little bit, but Doug Gillis had a program where he called it absolutes and styles. And the absolutes are the things that every elite pitcher in the world does. Male, female, they all do the same things mechanically, but they have a different style in which they did them. And I started to notice that even as a young pitcher. I noticed that there was a difference between the styles that people were using, but they were still getting themselves into the same positions mechanically in their pitch. So I noticed that early on, and it really, I guess I was just pretty observant.
What are some of those, the absolutes that you saw?
Well, things like making sure that you're not pitching around your hips. Basically, anything that's hello elbow is out. It's funny. It's funny how that in the East Coast and up into Wisconsin too, there's a game called modified pitch softball. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of modified pitch, but there's two kinds of modified. There's 9-man modified and there's 10-man modified. 9-man modified is basically slingshot, where the guys are allowed to just rear back and throw it as hard as they can slingshot. And you can throw rise, drop, you can throw anything you want slingshot. But 10-man modified is the exact opposite. You're not allowed to bend your elbow. You can't whip your arm. You have to go around your hips when you pitch, and you got to step straight forward. You can't turn your body. So it always makes me laugh that the people who advocate for hello elbow pitching mechanics, they don't realize that that's actually mechanics those are the rules for 10-man modified pitch, which is designed to restrict the pitcher. So it's crazy that's still being taught as though that is the way to pitch from some people, because like I said, if you play 10-man modified, the exact same things that a hello elbow coach is teaching someone are the things that a 10-man modified pitcher has to do, and they're very restrictive. Locking the elbow, locking the wrist.
Do you feel that the modified kind of took away from the normal, the real men's fast pitch? Do you think it kind of just drew it, like spread it out too much?
For a while it did. For a while it definitely did. It diversified and took a lot of great players and the guys that wanted to Not necessarily. Basically, it's a game that you don't want to play fast pitch, but I also don't want to say I'm playing slow pitch. So it's kind of that happy medium that people like try to talk themselves into saying, "Oh, I'm not playing slow pitch," but then they don't want the challenge of playing fast pitch either. So it did, but I think even today, modified pitch is really all sports are really losing numbers in participation. In rec league stuff. I mean, you drive by any park in the summertime, you don't see kids outside playing and using fields and things like that. So it definitely took away from it, but it's not the only thing that killed men's fast pitch. That's for sure.
What else do you think contributed to it?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that contributed to it. And, even when I was a kid, and I'm 53 years old, but when I was a kid, there was one game a week of baseball on TV. It was the game of the week on NBC or whatever on Saturday afternoons. And now you don't have to leave your house to be entertained. You can watch the Yankees 7 nights a week if you want. You don't have to leave home. So people aren't going out to the ball fields anymore. People aren't participating by going out and bringing their kids and people getting to see it. That really is taken away from a lot of things too, is just people just aren't going out for their entertainment anymore. They don't have to.
Well, then what about at the upper levels? I mean, you've been pretty outspoken about men's fast pitch getting the short end of the stick from USA softball. Is that still a problem?
Horrible. Unbelievable. For the first time and forever, the USA they have a really good chance to win it both at the 18U level and the 23 and under level. And the men's team is ranked 2 for the first time in a long time. So USA men's softball has never been in a better spot for the males, but they won't put the money into it, or they say they don't have it. But they have the money to send the 15-year-old girls to wherever they want to go, for a Pan Am tournament. But the USA boys team didn't even get to go to the Pan Am championship because USA softball couldn't fund it.
Yeah, that's bad. I want to go back to a little bit with your pitching. Who are some of the influences or the people that really helped you to get to that next level?
When I was young, and growing up in Erie, Pennsylvania, we had the men's league was good. It wasn't great, but it was good, and I didn't know any better. I didn't know that what I was seeing was basically a class B level, maybe class A, a low level class A. So you have four levels. You have the major, the A, the B, the C. And I thought what I was seeing was some of the best pitchers in the country in Erie, Pennsylvania, watching these guys pitch, because I was a kid and they were throwing hard, and I was amazed at what I was seeing. And then I would get to go see a tournament and I would see someone who's better than the guys in Erie. And I'd go, wow, that guy's even better. And then I'd see another pitcher and go, wow, that guy's even better. And so I started to realize that there was levels above what I was seeing at home. And so every time I ventured out to a different place, I would come home with a new idol. And that's when I started to discover, New Zealand softball and the growth, or I shouldn't say the growth, but the popularity of softball in New Zealand and how they bring in pitchers. Teams would be bringing in pitchers from New Zealand over here, and they that became kind of the thing. Is all the top teams were bringing these guys over from New Zealand and then later Australia and different parts of the world. And so, yeah, I mean, Mike White in particular was one that I looked up to. Getting to play with him was just a dream come true. And I really and genuinely got to play with all of my heroes that I looked up to as a kid.
Wow.
Not many people can say that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then you mentioned Doug Gillis as well. Was Doug a big influence on you?
Doug was a big influence in getting me started into coaching. He and I aren't that far apart in age, but he's got a few years on me. But he was one of the originals that I knew that started to do his coaching and doing lessons. And I remember asking him about it and telling him that maybe I should get into that. And he encouraged me to do it. Eventually, I decided to do it about 25, 26 years ago. I started giving lessons, and Doug was always somebody that I could call if I had a question, or, how do I teach this, or how do you approach that? And he never, ever, ever refused me any help. So he was a big influence on my coaching. That's for sure.
So what were some of the early lessons or mistakes that from your experience that kind of influenced your coaching later on as well?
Well, trying to make sure that I understood that I wanted people to understand the difference between the absolutes and the styles, to use Doug's phrases, because where I think coaches go wrong is they teach their style as though it's an absolute. Like, I wind up this way, so you have to wind up this way. I hold the rise ball this way, you have to hold the rise ball this way. And, you know, that is a big component of something that it took me a while to come to grips with. Making sure that people understood that, you know, listen, you can keep pitching. One of the things that's an advantage for me is obviously the background I have where I can demonstrate the pitching. Anything I'm telling them, you want to see backspin on a rise ball, I'll demonstrate it for you. Mm-hmm. And then girls would say, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Look at that. Oh, that's amazing. I say, oh, you like that? Well, doing it the way you're doing it, you're not going to be able to do what I just did. And I say that unapologetically because it's not my rule. I didn't invent how to pitch in any way, shape, or form. I didn't create this. I don't own a patent on anything. I didn't reinvent the wheel. But you cannot get backspin per se. Let's just use a rise ball. You cannot get backspin if you're using hello elbow mechanics. It can't be done.
Right.
So you have to make a decision somewhere. Do I want to pitch with these hello elbow antiquated mechanics, or do I want to do what the best pitchers in the world are actually doing? Yeah,
and I think that when you're talking about that, I mean, there's just certain biomechanics that have to go into it. You can't throw a rise ball and get backspin if your hand is facing forward. If you're pushing the ball through release, it's impossible. Right.
And saying that makes you come across as arrogant, and they say, oh, no, there's all these different ways to the top, and these are the people that think that they can get there. They can get to that top of the mountain because even using hello elbow mechanics. But, you know, some of the best pitchers, you know, a good example is Jenny Finch. Jenny Finch grew up as a hello elbow style pitcher, but you watch Jenny Finch pitch and she does not pitch with hello elbow mechanics. She does in her clinics and her demonstrations and stuff like that when she's going super slow motion. But you watch her pitch, she doesn't pitch like that. And to my knowledge, I don't know anybody that's ever called her out on it and said, wait a minute, that's not what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, I've never been invited to one of her camps because I would probably call her out on it.
So unlike you, Bill. I do, since we're on the rise ball, Bill, I want to talk to you a little bit. I use a cue that I believe I actually took and stole from you, and that is talking about the back shoulder, right? Where that back shoulder has to be on that rise ball. Uh-huh. Can you elaborate a little bit for some of the pitching dads and moms about where that back shoulder should be on a rise ball and how the hand can get under better?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing about the rise ball is that that's the one pitch that's unforgiving. You can cheat mechanically and have a drop ball. You can cheat mechanically and have a changeup. You can even cheat to a degree and have a curveball, but there's no such thing as cheating to get backspin on a rise ball. It can't be done. And so the one thing that I always make sure that I'm really reinforcing is that pitcher hides the back shoulder from the target. That allows the arm to make sure it goes through the hips and not around the hips. And that's not a small difference. That's a major difference in mechanics, is making sure that the hand goes through the hips, not around the hips. And so there's little cues that I'll use to make sure that happens. And one of them is making sure that they hide the back shoulder. One of the other ones is trying to make sure that the back of my forearm is brushing against my stomach to ensure that my hand is under the ball. Tip of my thumb stays pointed to third base as long as possible. And this, you know, some of this stuff, Jay, is where a problem lies is the way some girls are warming up. The way you warm up has a direct correlation to the way that you pitch. And when you see like the wrist snaps, when pitchers are taught to do wrist snaps, they're teaching themselves to use the wrist, and the wrist is not your friend on the rise ball. The wrist is what creates the bullet spin when you're turning your wrist. That's why I really dislike the phrase turning a doorknob on the rise, because that
Yes.
implies that you're turning the wrist. And when you turn the wrist, that automatically is going to make the ball go into bullet spin.
I think I've heard you say hundreds of times, Bill, and I use it all the times with the girls, that the wrist is the rise ball killer.
Yeah, it is, because, and it goes back to the warm-ups. When you see girls warming up, that's what they do, is they do the wrist snaps. And I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but one thing that I tell when I do a speaking engagement to coaches, I always ask how many, usually the males in the audience, how many here grew up playing baseball, and usually a heavy percentage raise their hand, say, I grew up playing baseball. And I'll say, but have you ever in your life seen a baseball pitcher warm up with his arm straight up over his head and just using his wrist and snapping his wrist? Like, nobody's ever seen that before, because that's not how you throw. And an underhand, that's not how you throw. You don't want your elbow locked so that the only thing that can move is your wrist, because the wrist, when that happens, that's what's gonna, when you're locked out your elbow, you locked out your wrist, your wrist is gonna, well, I shouldn't say locked out your wrist, because your wrist is gonna move if you locked out your elbow. So, but that's what kills it, is these wrist snap drills. It comes back to bite them in the butt.
How's your understanding of mechanics changed over the years, or has it? I mean, have you kind of adjusted as you've gone along, as you work with more kids and seen more different, I guess, body types and movement patterns and all that?
I don't think I've changed too much. If I have, it's been so long that I've been doing it that it's happened so gradually that I haven't noticed. I think I'm just a little more aware of some limitations that some girls have. I'm sure you guys have this too, where some of the most dedicated, passionate pitchers are the ones that have the least amount of talent, and the ones that just can roll out of bed and throw 65 miles an hour are the ones that just go, Yeah. It just drives you insane, because that 65-mile-an-hour pitcher, just imagine how good you'd be if you actually put 100% into
right.
it. But I don't know that I've made any changes necessarily to what I teach. I genuinely dislike the term IR, that whole IR debate and internal rotation. It drives me insane, because people think that is like a style of pitching, as
right.
opposed to what it actually is, and just describing what your body's doing. Even hello elbow is really just describing what you're kind of doing. But I don't think I've changed too much. I've pretty much stayed the course all the way through. And I think just more people have kind of caught up with what pitchers are actually doing. I'll tell you guys a funny story. I spoke at a coach's clinic in Seattle a number of years ago, and the headline speaker was Sue Enquist, former UCLA head coach, winner of all the national championships and everything like that. And there was 300 people in the crowd, and she said, her first thing she said when she got up on the dais was, how many here have my hitting videos from 10 years ago, my VHS tapes? And everybody wanting to be a good student raised their hand. I have all your stuff, Sue. I have all your stuff. And she said, throw them away. And I thought, boy, from a marketing standpoint, that's outstanding, man. She's going to resell everything. But she said, a lot of things that we thought we were doing, we weren't actually doing, like squish the bug. That's not what the hitters are actually doing. And pitching, you could relate that to pitching as well. I think the hello elbow started off from a good place. It started off where people thought that that's what they were actually doing. But now we have software programs, and we have high-speed cameras, and we have all these tools and Rapsodos and gadgets, and we're finding out what the body is actually doing, not what we think it's doing, and that's made a difference.
Yeah.
So some people saw the light, and others are just going to die on this hill.
Yeah, that's the thing. I get a student in sometimes, and she'll say, my high school coach or my travel coach told me that I should do this or I should do that. And, goes totally against what good mechanics are. And I say, tell your coach to throw out the VHS tapes and maybe at least buy a DVD.
Yeah. Yeah. It's maddening, isn't it? When somebody's coming to you for this coaching, and then the high school coach who has no business teaching pitching tries to get you because they saw a video, somewhere.
and sometimes has no business teaching geometry, but that's another stuff.
I also want to talk to you. Have you used the pitch logic ball at all? Do you have that out at all or no?
one of my students got one and started using it, and it's just amazing to me how that ball does what they say it does. The dad's got his phone, and he after every pitch can tell you the spin rate and everything. It's just amazing how every day there's something new that comes out, that it's a new gadget, and it seems like it's a pretty good tool. I think it's probably good just for the sake of measuring, just to see if you're picking up your spins and stuff. The problem with some of that stuff, though, is it doesn't help correct the spins. It just tells you where you're wrong or what's happening with it. So I don't really use all that stuff myself. I'm not a big gadget guy. There's very few gadgets that I recommend and endorse. But that one seems kind of interesting to me. It seems like it's kind of a modified version of Rapsodo in a way. Is that what we're talking about? The ball that you throw and you just get the results on your iPhone. And
yeah. So that's something. I mean, I've been using it, and actually, I think it's helped a lot with the kids. It's not something I think you can use by yourself. A lot of times, the kid can't do it. But for me, what I found is when we're using it, getting that feedback and seeing it that way, it has helped the kids to understand better how they need to change or what they need to do to make an adjustment. So I think, for me, it's had some value that way. I think it just helps the kids with some understanding.
Yeah. And I think, anything that helps the kids is a good thing. And there's, kids are a lot more tech savvy than probably the three of us are. So they understand the gadgets and the tools and all that stuff. Like I said, I catch for every one of my students when I'm doing lessons. So I'm seeing it all firsthand, and that's basically how I will construct the lesson or whatever it is that we're working on at that point, is from catching, seeing the rotation on the ball. From the rotation, I can tell immediately what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, what they have to alter and how. And that's pretty much the first thing I do with a brand new student to begin with, is make sure they understand why does the ball go where it goes. And they don't understand why the ball's going to the left or to the right, they're not going to know how to fix it. And you can yell all day long, Susie, throw strikes, throw strikes. But if she doesn't understand why she's not throwing strikes, how is she going to be able to make corrections? I think my catching, I'm just not a big gadget guy. And maybe that's to my detriment a little bit. Maybe I should be a little bit better, but at this point in my life, I'm probably not going to change.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm so old now. I tell people I don't even buy green bananas. So
what I used to do all night now takes me all night to do it.
Hey Jay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think brush contact is for pitchers?
It's pretty high up there, Ken. Probably a 10, since it's hard to get maximum speed or accuracy without it.
Yeah, I agree. But have you ever had a student who struggled to get good light brush contact?
Sure, all the time, in fact. Especially when they've been taught hello elbow and are trying to throw around their hips, or they're sliding their hips out of the way doing that crazy ninja move.
So what do you do when you run into that situation? Keep railing on them until they get it right?
I used to do that a lot, but then I learned about a product called Pitch Squeak, Ken.
Pitch Squeak? What's that?
It's a cool little armband with a squeaker inside of it.
Like a dog toy?
Yeah, kinda.
So how does it work?
Well, you slip the armband onto the pitcher's forearm and you set it so the squeaker is where the brush contact should happen. Then, when the pitcher goes into release, she tries to get it to squeak, like this. If she makes it happen, she got brush. If there's no sound, she knows immediately and can make a correction.
Wow, cool. So she gets immediate audible as well as tactile feedback.
Oh, there you go again, showing off with those big and technical words again. But yeah, she can feel it and hear it.
Does it really work?
You bet it does. I use it with my students all the time, and it helps them learn how to get brush contact pretty quickly if they practice with it.
Sounds neat. Where can I get one?
Oh, it's easy, Ken. Just email support@pitchsqueak.com, and Jason, the inventor of it, and a Polygirl certified pitching coach himself, will ask you how many you want and send them right out.
I'll do that today. Thanks, Jay. What's that address again?
Oh, you bet, Ken. It's support@pitchsqueak.com. One more time for those of you who are listening, support@pitchsqueak.com. And don't forget to mention in the email that you heard about it right here on From the Coach's Mouth podcast, and you'll receive 10% off.
So what makes a drill actually valuable versus just social media filler?
Oh boy. If it incorporates the actual pitching motion, I mean, like again, going back to the wrist flips drills, I mean, that's going to come back to bite them in the butt. And so I want to make sure that whatever drill they're using is something that is going to be beneficial when they actually pitch. Now that sounds like, of course, that's simple logic, but when you see how many drills are out there that don't make any sense at all, it's a statement that still has to be made. I don't understand a lot of drills I see. I do not understand pitching from my knees, and like I'm Eddie Feiner, king in his court, pitching from my knees through my legs and all that stuff. And there's a lot more bad drills than there are good drills. And I think you said it right, that a lot of them are just fillers for their lessons.
Yeah, or even just trying to get social media clicks. Jay and I talk about that all the time, that, social media, you got to be constantly putting stuff out there. And I think sometimes, people just sit there and they try to come up with something so they have something to post that day, but it isn't necessarily valuable.
Yeah, that's kind of that's the rub, isn't it? Is trying to make your post have some meaning behind it and logic behind it and actually helpful to a pitcher. And it, not everybody's itching at the same place. So what a fix for one thing for one person may not be the fix for the next person in line in the clinic. So it's like, for example, saying hide your back shoulder on the rise ball. Well, Sally might understand what I mean, but Jane next to her doesn't understand that. So then I'm going to have to come up with another way to explain it to Jane. And I try to keep all that stuff as simple as I possibly can. That's why I don't really spend a lot of time with drills, because I think drills come back to bite people in the butt, especially when they start doing them wrong. And not the least of which is some of these drills for the whole IR thing. When you got people forcing the IR, which is what I see a lot of times. I see people forcing, like just rolling their hand over as they're releasing. They're teaching themselves another bad habit. I mean, you're just trading one bad habit for another. And I'm doing IR. Well, that's great, but you're just trading one problem for another.
I think that's one of the most misunderstood parts of pitching, and the whole IR idea is I see so many kids that come in that say, yeah, she was taught, the parents say she was taught IR, but I can see that she's just pushing the ball out and then rolling her wrist over after the ball is gone. It's like, this is not a make it happen. This is a let it happen.
Yeah. It's very similar to people who throw a turnover drop. People who do the turnover drop or the rollover drop, the ball, if you watch them, put it in slow motion, 99.9% of the time, the ball is out of their hand by the time they roll their wrist over and they do that goofy turnover where they finish down with their hand. What is the point of it? What is the point of doing that added motion at the end of rolling the wrist over when the ball's already been released? What made the ball drop is not the turnover motion. It's that you did everything else probably pretty well. You probably rolled it off your fingertips good. You probably had a shorter step so that you didn't overstride and hang the ball high, but it didn't have anything to do with that turnover part. And, it drives me nuts when people say they throw a turnover drop and you watch them and they're not actually throwing a turnover drop. So, the hardest thing about the drop ball is the simplicity of it.
So, Bill, I want to ask you, what do you think about this current trend of people teaching the leaps? You think it's good or bad for pitchers and for the game?
I think something had to be done because the hot bats and the hot ball. I mean, when your infield has to wear face masks because of how hot the bats and the balls are, something had to change for the pitcher because everything has been geared towards the hitter in recent years. I think strike zones have shrunk. Of course, maybe I'm a little biased on that, but
not according to all the parents I talked to after a tournament over the weekend.
Yeah, depending on which side won. It was the next phase in the evolution of pitching, Jay. It was bound to happen. I think though that people are taking it to the extreme though, and just there's too many people that do not understand the difference between a leap and a crow hop, and the majority of what I see being taught is blatant crow hopping, and I don't understand how they're not being called illegal. I think that the governing bodies, if you will, the rule makers, they did this just for the sake of taking this off the umpire's back. And so the umpires can just say, I think it's a leap. That's all there is to it. It's a leap. It's not a crow up. It's a leap. And so gives the umpire some deniability as to they don't have to look anymore because now leaping is legal and they don't really have to pay attention to whether it's a crow hop or a leap because it all comes down to discretion. It's the umpire's discretion whether or not it's a leap or a crow hop. And so I think that's why it started to really catch on is that umpires just they don't want to get accosted in the parking lot after games because, you know, Sally's dad costed them for calling illegal pitches and now they don't have to. But mechanically speaking, if it's done safely, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But there are some issues that happen when pitchers crow hop, and it you know, a lot of pitchers that have low back pain, it's from the pounding that taking from crow hopping and landing on that back foot. It's a pretty common thing to get some low back pain. So there's trade-offs to it, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you know, if you win the Winter Breeze tournament indoors, isn't that worth sacrificing a kid's back for it?
Sure. Of course it is. Yeah, it's. I don't know where it's going to go at this point because I think they've painted themselves in a corner with not having clear-cut definitions between a crow hop and a leap. They're just letting umpires have the discretion, and I guess it's always going to be that way to a degree. But I mean, what I'm seeing, particularly from a couple social media pitching coaches, is they're just blatant crow hops. Mm-hmm. And I really worry about the kids because eventually they're going to run into an umpire who does know the difference and is going to call those pitchers illegal. And will that kid be able to adjust? Will that kid be able to make an in-game adjustment to pitch, quote unquote, legally, as opposed to, you know, the crow hopping that they're doing? And I can tell you from firsthand experience, it is not easy to flip-flop from one to the other. I had to learn how to do it both ways, both legally and with crow hopping. It's not easy to flip-flop. Timing gets disrupted. Everything gets disrupted. So I think it was inevitable that this is what was going to happen because it was about the only thing that we can really do for pitchers is to open it up a little bit for them. Because these girls have 90-pound slappers who can hit a ball 300 feet now because of the bats and the ball. So they had to do something to open it up for the pitchers a little bit.
When we look at that and, you know, you talk about having to make those adjustments and all those kinds of things, it reminds me of just general adversity. Since you have experience with pitching and being in the game, how do you work with your girls to handle adversity and challenges and failures and all those kinds of things?
I am one of the biggest proponents of sports psychology out there. I have a guy here in town that I work a lot with that when I have pitchers, the kind that are serious and the kind that are going to put the time in with it and are going to make a difference with it, I send them to sports psychologists. And there, like I said, I have a guy here he's actually a softball coach as well. And his part-time gig is sports psych. His full-time gig is he's like truly one of the guys on Criminal Minds that he goes around to the prisons and interviews serial killers and stuff during the daytime. And then, and then his passion is softball and sports psychology. And so, you know, the good and bad, there's 100,000 pitching coaches out there. good and bad, there's 100,000 hitting coaches out there, but there's very few that really work on the brain and how to teach yourself how to think and how to stay cool in the moment. And, that's something that the U.S. Olympic team spends a lot of time with too. Having spent time with the Olympic team, they bring in the sports psychologist. He does individual meetings with them and group meetings with them. And we had it with the men's team too. We had access to the Olympic sports psychologists. And I really wish I would have gotten more opportunity with it because it's invaluable. And I tell parents that operate clubs, or particularly parents, but even if it's just a club director, find out if any local colleges in your area offer sports psych. And if they do, contact that professor, see if the students in that class will come out and do field training with the softball teams and apply what they're learning to a softball team.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And that's it's something that if they did, it's hard to quantify how valuable that is.
Yes, although it sounds like that guy that's working with the prisoners during the day, maybe instead of working with the kids, they ought to be working with some of the softball parents.
Yeah,
check it out. What's wrong with them?
That's a whole other subject too, isn't it? Yeah. softball pitching parents.
Yeah,
I don't know. Are they as crazy with hitting as they are with pitching?
Yeah, I think so.
The only thing I do hitting is just throw live batting. I don't do anything outside of pitching. Like I don't do any kind of hitting lesson or anything like that. I throw live batting to them, and then when they get to a certain point, then I'll start working with them on how to pick pitchers and what to look for from the box and how to see, what the pitcher is going to throw ahead of time. And it's things like that really, if they're just taught how to look for things, just like catchers calling games, it's just ridiculous to me that we're getting dugouts. They're getting signals from dugouts in Division I college softball because they're trained like robots when they're kids. They're not taught how to call games. Mm-hmm. They're not taught what to look for. They're not taught how to react. They're not taught. And it's frustrating because if you have somebody that can teach that sort of stuff, it cuts out that element of needing to get all the signals from the dugouts. But it's also just about getting their softball IQ up by watching, paying attention.
You're going to get Jay all fired up here.
Oh, you're not.
Yeah, you are. Well, I was going to say, Bill, when you were playing back in the day, I mean, the coach wasn't really a coach. You just kind of had to figure it out ourselves, right? Like, I mean, you just learned, and then you didn't make that mistake again, but you learned by doing it, not by someone telling you.
Right. Yeah. We're in my world, it was more about, the coach made up lineups. That it wasn't, coaching per se. And there wasn't calls coming in from the dugout for pitch selection and things like that. That doesn't exist in men's softball. Probably more out of ego than anything, but.
Yeah. So you mean they didn't, on a first and third, they didn't, call a timeout and go talk to everybody and tell them what to do?
Yeah. That if you haven't figured it out already, then yeah. It's amazing how that's almost a guaranteed timeout, isn't it? First and third.
Yeah.
Almost guaranteed to be a timeout.
All right. So we've been talking about parents, and you have that experience now with your son. He's a championship level swimmer, a sport that you really don't know anything about, or at least didn't grow up doing. What's it like being on the parent side?
Well, it's a little unfair because he does all his stuff. He lives in Europe, so I don't get to see him swim all that often. But when they do stream some of his events, I'll get up at 3 a.m. to watch his event. It's nerve-wracking. I can see why parents. I think if I was a softball parent, I would be one of those that takes my lawn chair out to center field and sit because I would be too boisterous, or at least my body language would denote how I'm feeling at that moment, and with pitch selection or whatever. And so yeah, I would probably just excuse myself out to center field and let the coach do his coaching or her. It is hard. It is hard because you want to be there. You want to help them. I want to help them with everything I can, but I'm also aware of my limitations. I'm not a swimmer. I can't teach them anything swimming. The only thing I can do is drive them to the pool, and I wish that more people knew their limitations when it comes to pitching. Makes you wonder why sometimes. Why are you paying for these lessons when you know better than me?
Yeah. So I've done a thing before where I'll have a parent that's trying to give advice, or even worse to me is repeating what I just said. So I'll tell them, hey, if you want, I'll go sit on the bucket and catch, and you can do the lesson, but I'm going to charge you the same amount no matter which one you have me do.
Yeah. Yeah, a mistake that parents make is they say something to the kid every pitch. Every single pitch, good or bad, they got something to say. And you see it, like the girl will throw a pitch and she'll immediately look to dad for feedback. And that's no good. You can't have that, because what's going to happen if dad isn't there that day? And the feedback isn't always going to be there that's why I'm a big proponent of teaching them what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong on their own, so they can tell themselves what they did right and wrong and how to fix it. But yeah, that's where I come from with it, is I'm making sure that the kids know what they've done themselves so that they can make their own self-corrections.
Yeah, I think that's important too. It's become your own pitching coach. Learn what you're doing wrong. That's why I like what we call the Socratic method. I try not to tell them what to do. I try to ask them what they did and see if they can figure it out, so that, and I even will tell them, why am I asking you this question? And they usually know. So when I'm out there pitching, I can figure it out. If something's going wrong, I can do it. I said, yeah, because you certainly don't want your coach or your parents or anybody else yelling advice to you at that point. You just need to be in the zone and focused on what you're doing.
Well, one of two things happens when a parent or even a coach, it doesn't even have to be a parent, it could be a pitching coach who says something after every single pitch. One of two things is going to happen. That kid is either going to become dependent on that feedback and after every pitch stare, what did I do good? What did I do wrong? Or they're going to learn to tune you out because you're saying something every single pitch. And either way, it's not a good situation. So,
I hear ambulances. That's not coming for you, is it?
No, sir. I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay.
Did you really hear an ambulance?
Yeah, I can hear an ambulance in the background somewhere. Maybe that's by me.
Might be by one of you guys. I'm where, yeah.
Okay.
No ambulances here.
All righty, good. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's the thing is there's that balance between, the coaching, the coaching and the overcoaching, because there is a such thing as overcoaching. First thing I do with a new student is make sure they understand, why does the ball go where it goes? If they don't understand that, they're not going to know how to make corrections themselves.
What is one of the first things that you look at when you get a new student in? When you're evaluating them, what are you looking for?
Can tell a lot just by watching her throw overhand. The first time she throws the ball overhand, it tells me a lot. If there's good form or bad form in the overhand throw, it's going to tell me a lot about what I can expect in the underhand. Now, it's not a foolproof method. There are people who aren't very good at throwing overhand, but can throw underhand pretty well, and vice versa. But
remember Jelly Selden over at UCLA?
Yeah, yes. That is one of the hardest things to do in pitching, is to throw overhand after you've been throwing underhand like that. And I tell all of my students that in between innings, when you get your 3 warm-up pitches and I throw it down, they throw it around, I will stand there and I will throw overhand with my third baseman until the batter is on their way into the box and they're ready to go and the umpire says play ball. I will just sit there and throw overhand, just making sure that I keep those muscles in shape and ready to go, so that if I do get a comebacker, it's not going to be an errant throw, hopefully, because it is really hard to throw a ball overhand, especially if there's a fast runner and you got to hustle.
Yeah.
But just take 2 or 3 throws, throw it over to third base, and just keep that that overhand motion working for you, because you never know when you're going to need it.
So, Bill, where do you see the future of softball pitching heading?
Future of softball pitching. Well, I think it's only going to keep getting better. There's a lot of male coaches, a lot of male fast pitch coaches are getting in. Fast pitch players are getting into the college game, and their daughters are playing, and it's not to say that men are the end all be all to this, but it's adding another dynamic to the game, another style of play, if you will, to the game. And so it's only going to help increase the level and make pitchers better, having more opportunities and having more voices to hear from. I think the future of it looks pretty good. You look at, we were just talking about that ball that has all the gadgets attached to it and everything, look at all these things that are coming out now that are designed to help pitchers. It's starting to kind of, there's a lot of tools out there now. So just because I'm old fashioned dinosaur, I'm not using them, doesn't mean that there isn't any value to them. But, I think it's only going to keep getting better. Look at the pitchers that are out there today, Jordy Ball and Nigeri Canada and, Tegan Cavan, and, they're the top of their class. They're the top of the game. And if you look at them, they all have pretty similar motions. And so, similar mechanics anyway. I think it's only going to increase. I think the more of the Hello Elbow coaches, they're for the most part, I see them dropping off. I don't think there's as many as there used to be, but like I said before, there's some that are going to just die on that hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. From your perspective, are there things that maybe don't show up on a stat sheet that college coaches value? So I guess some of the intangibles that kids might bring.
Body language. Body language is a huge one. There's a famous story, and I don't know how true it is, but a famous story that Patrick Murphy recruited Montana Fouts. He made her offer. Obviously, he was going to offer her anyway, but one of the things that happened was Fouts pitched in a game, and she got rocked apparently, or didn't pitch very well. And she didn't go in the dugout and cry or sulk. She was the biggest cheerleader for the pitcher who came in and supported her. And that right there showed Murphy that this kid gets it. Mm-hmm. And, some days you got it and some days you don't. But she didn't pout and sulk the way that a lot of kids will today. Didn't have to put up with any crap. I didn't worry about the outcome. She just knew that she still is a good pitcher, and it was. But that was how Murphy made his offer to her. Apparently, was after that game that she didn't do very well, and it was because of the way she handled defeat. So it's kind of a cool story, even if it's not true.
Yeah, it definitely is.
If you could give one message to young pitchers chasing big dreams, what would it be?
One message: ask questions.
Or you can make it 2 or 3, Bill.
I would say ask questions, like the way I did. Ask how go to talk to. Don't be shy and afraid to ask for help from. If you see somebody that, well, I'm trying to think of how I want to say it. I just ask people all the time, how did you do that? Why did you do it this way? That's how I was learning how to pitch, was asking all these questions. And I think sometimes girls are a little shy to do that because they have a pitching coach. They don't want to step on toes of the pitching coach. But if I'm seeing the best in the world doing something that my pitching coach is not teaching me, I need to know why that is. And so why are you teaching me to pitch Hello Elbow when that's not what that girl's doing over there who's pitching for Texas? So I would ask questions as much as I can. That's the biggest thing, is find the common denominators in the answers, because they're all going to say, I hide my shoulder, I whip my elbow, I get my legs into it, whatever the appropriate thing is that whatever the question is, ask questions.
I think one other thing that's kind of cool about you is that you've been pretty vocal about not really promoting that you were the pitching coach for this kid or that kid. I didn't know you were Tegan's pitching coach until you happened to mention it to me, in another context. Why are you that way? What's the reason? So many people want to go out there and make it seem like they were the reason that this kid or that kid was successful. Why do you kind of step back from that?
For that exact reason, because I'm not the reason that Tegan Cavan, every kid I work with gets the same exact information. It's what they do with it that's different. Now, some kids just have more natural ability than others. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. But I just don't take credit where it's not due. And these girls put the time and the work in, and I don't think it's my place to say, oh yeah, well, I was her coach. And I just try not to take credit for their hard work is really what it comes down to. It's like I said, they all get the same training. It's what they do with it that's the difference.
Yeah. I love hearing you say that, because that's the same thing that I'll say, when somebody's talking about a kid I have who's having some success, is like, I judge my abilities on the kids that are having the most trouble, not the least trouble.
Exactly. I get more. Yep. I get more out of seeing somebody with the lesser ability do well than I do with somebody I know is going to be good.
Yeah,
somebody I know is going to make it, and those are the ones that bring you back after week. Is those ones that man, they just appreciate what you taught them, and they're going to work at it, and it doesn't matter that they're not the best pitcher in the country. They're just going to keep working hard. Those are the ones that it's enjoyable. And you got to have the right parent mixture too.
Right.
You got to have the right parent mixture where the kid, we've all had students where the dad is just a nut job. Let's just be honest. There's a nut job. And I had a student once that dad can't take it. If her backspin wasn't there that day, he can't take it. He'll go out and sit in the car because he gets so mad and frustrated with his daughter because she's having an off day. And it's these are the people that you see on Oprah, that Dr. Phil. So yeah, I'm a big believer. I just don't I don't take the credit for somebody, because I don't take the credit for anybody's success. And the same is true for the speed factor too. I've never held up a picture with somebody with their speed gun and stuff like that. And I understand why kids do it. It's a great motivation tool for them, and they're proud of their achievement. And I get it. And if they do it on their own, that's great, but it's just not something I promote myself.
Yeah, no, I will admit I do that. And I do it because I want to reward the kid. She worked and she did well. And I'll usually tell a little story about it, and usually try to do some little funny things that happened. Like I had a girl, the last one I wrote up was yesterday, Tuesday night. I had this girl, Gwen, and she told me at the beginning of the lesson that her dad told her she got back up to her previous high, he'd give her $100. And then if she got a new high, he'd give her another $100. She hit both goals. And when she came back after we took the picture, I said, so what are you going to do with that $200? And she just looks at me and she goes, that was just a scam. They're not going to pay me.
I think I see most of the girls, Ken, that you're talking about on your social media that hold up their radar gun and stuff. And those girls are just beaming with pride.
Right.
Beaming with pride. And that alone would be worth it to hold that memory for them. So I don't blame anybody for doing it. It's just not something I do myself.
Right. Yeah, no. And again, I don't hold it up as an example of my great teaching. I hold it up as an example of this kid worked hard. She set
Correct.
A goal and, she did better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing is, it's all about the context. You're not trying to take the credit, right, or, take the wind out of their sail.
Awesome. Well, Bill, we've had you for more than an hour now, so we're going to let you wrap it up here too. But before, Ken and I can't thank you enough. You're a legend in this game. You've taught and helped me tremendously. I know you've helped other pitching coaches, and we can't thank you enough for that and what you've given to this game. Before we let you go, though, is there a way for our listeners to help you with your medical expenses or other needs?
that would be so helpful. As I said at the outset of talking to you guys, I used to do 10, 12-hour days on Saturdays, Sundays, and then I had weeknight lessons, and now I'm down to doing 6 lessons a week. So my expenses have not changed, but my income has certainly changed. Mm-hmm. So my girlfriend set up a GoFundMe account. If you go to GoFundMe.com and then type in Hillhouse Cancer or just Google Hillhouse Cancer, GoFundMe, you'll find it. Anything helps. Anything helps. I tell you what, it costs more to die in this country than it does to live.
Yeah, isn't that a shame?
Expenses and everything else that goes with it.
Shame.
But that would be extremely helpful. I still get emails from people a lot that ask for pitching help, and I always want to say to them, well, how about you help me?
Yeah.
But yeah, that I appreciate you bringing that up. GoFundMe.com is some people have just Venmoed directly. My Venmo is William-Hillhouse-1. 3369 is the last 4 of my phone number. Sometimes people need that to send a Venmo to somebody they've never Venmoed before. Yeah, it would be very helpful. Take anything I can get. And I never thought a day would come where I would be doing that, but here I am. Never thought the day would come where I told I have a terminal illness either. So
yeah. And then is houseofpitching.com? I mean, are you still selling DVDs and?
Well, DVD market's pretty much gone now. There's nobody. I mean, if anybody wanted DVDs, I would just pretty much give them to them.
Okay.
My website, I got hit with a malware attack about almost 10 years ago now, and I never put it back up because I was coaching in college at that point. And so when you're coaching in college, it restricts what you can do with private lessons. And so I just never put it back up and got my website going again. And fortunately, I have enough name recognition. I guess the Hillhouse is a goofy enough name that people recognize the name. And I was able to get lessons here in Nebraska pretty quickly. So it worked itself out.
All right, great. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us today. We know you got a lot of stuff going on, so we really appreciate all the time and everything you've done for the sport. So we wish you well. Thank
you, guys.
Hope that
this was my pleasure. Like I said earlier, about stretching those softball muscles in the head. This helped with that. You guys asked me some questions I had to really think about. So I appreciate that.
Oh, great. Thanks, Bill. All righty. Well, that's it for us this week. Thanks to all of you for listening and the kind words you've been sharing with us. If you like what you're hearing, please remember to give us a like, leave a comment, and share this podcast on your social media channels. Make sure you never miss an episode by following us on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're so inclined, you can also leave a great review on Apple Podcasts to help more people find us. On behalf of the From the Coach's Mouth podcast, have a great rest of your week and weekend.